Welcome to the NWI.com Political Roundtable for Thursday, June the 9th. I'm Robert Blaszkiewicz, Assistant Managing Editor of the Times, here with Doug Ross, Editorial Page Editor of the Times, and Times columnist Mark Kiesling, bringing you this week's political developments. Ongoing, Mark, you've been doing a lot of reporting on the scandal in the Lake County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, and it only threatens to get bigger, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
It's right now we're looking at 6 officers who are accused of various and sundry things, and you're looking right now at the accusations of the sales of guns that were owned by the county sheriff's department that have been used in, allegedly used in a double homicide in Alabama, and quite possibly a hostage situation in Merrillville.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
the crossing of state lines there that obviously gets the feds involved.
Well, now the federal involvement, we have the FBI, and we have the 8th Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and we have the Internal Revenue Service, which gets in on everything. But then we have the Food and Drug Administration.
That's kind of the mysterious one.
The Food and Drug Administration is the interesting one, and I think we're going to see some more come out about that, if I could help it, fairly quickly, about how commissary funds were used. Commissary funds are funds that are collected from the prisoners, from what they earn each day
doing work,
and right, and they put it aside, and it is used by the sheriff's department to pay for things like training. Now, the possibility is that it was used for things other than training, and indeed some things that I'm working on this right now, but some things that went outside the sheriff's department were actually given to private individuals to benefit them.
Let's go for a 10-second history lesson here. What used to be the case is that the sheriff had a set amount that would be given for meals, and if the meals didn't cost that much, then the sheriff was allowed to pocket the change.
Well,
that's no longer the case.
No, that's no longer the case, and that decision came when the Marion County Sheriff in Indianapolis was found to have been making a whole lot of money off of that. So they stopped that, but still they've got these commissary funds that can be used for, they can't be used for anything. They used to be able to be used for just about anything. They've tightened the reins. They've made it more difficult to spend commissary funds on things unrelated to the sheriff's department. And but there is some question. Our current sheriff, John Bunsich, has some questions about whether or not, under the previous administration, some of the commissary funds were used to benefit private individuals.
Now, we haven't seen any indictments along that line, to my knowledge, but
and we haven't seen any charges, period. Although there's been raids, officers have been put on leave, no one has been charged.
Records have been seized.
Without giving too much of my Sunday column away, the grand jury has been convened and is already looking into it. It's they're not wasting any time. They're moving right along, and I don't think it's going to be very long before we see some indictments, and before we see some widening of the scope of this investigation.
Okay, well, let's move on to another topic. Doug, the Little Cal River, lots of debate going on over how best to administer the maintenance of the levees along the river. What
Right.
direction is that going in?
Well, good question. There's been it's been decades in the making to get us to the point where the levees are almost, just for a few finishing touches, are, by and large done. And so, basically it protects you to the 200-year flood level, which will probably only happen every decade or so. But then, if you get these certified by the feds, then that allows you to take the protected properties out of the floodplain.
Of course,
Well, in order to get them certified, they've got to be maintained.
we should say that, a 100-year flood is not necessarily a flood that occurs every 100 years.
Right.
It's a flood that has a 1 in 100 chance of happening every year.
Right. So, and these are to the 200-year level.
And if you drive along the levees, they look quite impressive.
Two separate issues working here. One is how do you pay for the maintenance, and the other is how do you administer
Right.
the maintenance.
So there are two models involved. Lake County Surveyor George Van Til has proposed a plan that would create something called the Calumet Burns Conservancy District that
Correct.
reaches into Porter County, so it's the whole Little Cal watershed, at least in Indiana, and that would tax people nearer the river $20 and farther away from the river $10 a year. A year, period. A
Right.
small amount, but cover a large territory.
But we're
And-
talking people within the watershed.
Right, exactly.
People should understand also that Lake County peaks out at about St. John, and the watershed goes towards the Little Calumet River at one point and goes away towards the Kankakee at another point.
Right, so it's in essence a continental divide.
You're right. The people that would be affected would only be those who were within the Little Calumet watershed.
Which is a pretty huge watershed.
It's a pretty huge watershed, but let's face it. If you're in that watershed, you are contributing to the problem.
Right. So the question is, how would the Conservancy District be set up? Well, by Lake County Circuit Court judge. So you would have a Porter County portion of it being set up by a Lake County judge. So, there's an issue there.
What troubles me is that people that are far away from the Little Calumet don't understand why they have to pay. They have to pay because their water is going into ditches
In the
run
watershed.
into the Little Calumet that then cause, and it's I saw an online comment this week. It's like if you don't want to live where it floods, don't move near the river. Well, that's a little silly at this point, because Hammond and Munster and Highland, Gary, you're already built up along the river. You can't just tear those houses down or declare them uninhabitable.
Right, you'd be destroying entire communities.
Right. What you do is you protect them, and this doesn't seem like an unreasonable
Right.
request to make monetarily to
Right.
protect your friends and neighbors.
Now, there's another proposal, which would be to...
The Dan Repay proposal?
Exactly. He's the director of the Little Calumet River Basin Development Commission that currently exists. And so his idea is to say, okay, have the state legislature set these fees, basically the same fees, set them by state statute, keep the existing commission, which is, rather than being elected, are appointed by the governor. The distinction being you're appointed based on your qualifications. You have to, have an engineering background, real estate background, things like that, so that you aren't a bread truck driver who doesn't know anything about drainage getting elected to it.
Okay.
So.
Well, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on, and we'll probably have maybe an editorial soon on kind of
Absolutely.
what we think the direction should be. So watch for that, and please join us next week for another political roundtable. Thank you.